Hello and welcome back to the Innings Break podcast. Here we are a few days after India have completed an absolute miracle victory down under. And yeah, what a series it was. People are saying it's one of the greatest series of all times, matching up with the 2005 Ashes. And honestly, I've fallen in love with Test cricket again. I just I was so glued to watching almost every ball of it, and even though it ruined my sleep routine, it was so worth it. Today we have the amazing Arg and Foothill. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Thanks, Rav. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I just wish Angry Lettuce were here to, eat some humble pie and perhaps let's take a little bit of a rewind to the last episode we did. Angry let us 4-0. He said 4-0 after the first test match, and I said to him, "Don't underestimate this cricket team. 4-0 is far, far away." And I'm pretty sure he made some very bold claims. But yeah, so Miss Lettuce, I know you're listening, and I hope you've enjoyed your humble pie. And I'm looking forward to have you on next week's podcast, where we can discuss how India are going to destroy England. But for this week, we're just going to do a review of the series, and then touch on Pakistan, South Africa. Also, we have the amazing Foothill here. Hello, Mr. Foothill. How are you?
Hi, how you doing?
Good, good. Foothill, you kept a keen eye on the Oz India series, didn't you?
Yes, I watched a fair amount of it, and of course, I was moderating the match threads for some time until all
Yeah,
of that went to shit. But yeah,
yeah,
no, I watched a lot of the series, and I think the reaction here in Australia has been pretty laudatory of India, and for how they were able to outplay Australia so comprehensively over the last three Test matches, and especially in light of like all the absentees through injury and whatever other reason. Yeah,
yeah,
everyone in Australia has just been very impressed with how India's come back to win that series. Speaking of
yeah.
humble pie, I remember the last episode. It
Hmm.
was myself, Lettuce, and you. And I
Yep.
distinctly remember you going on this bit of a rant about Ravi
Ravi
Shastri and
Shankar.
how he's such a
Yeah,
shitty coach. I wonder if you're eating
he is
humble
a
pie
shitty
now because
coach.
I've always thought he's a
No,
brilliant coach.
no, I'm not eating any humble pie. Every single person has good and bad traits. He probably is a brilliant motivator, but don't let that fool you. He makes the most ridiculous selection decisions ever. So I don't know if they were fueled by Kohli or him. And then we talked about the Kohli Shastri circle jerk. Um, I am. I'm not that. You know what? I feel like my comments were fair on Shastri. He's too over aggressive. Now, if you said to me Kohli and Shastri in the same room, that is a recipe for disaster, and I stick by that because all you have is just pure aggression and emotion leading your decision making. Now, if you said to me Shastri and Rahane in the same room, that would be a good fit, as we saw from the three test matches, because Shastri provides aggression and emotion, and Rohane provides a cool, calm look on things, and it's a good balance. You know, you have yin and yang. Whereas with Kohli, you just have fire and fire, and it's like a recipe for disaster. And I stick to it. Maybe Shastri would be a great coach if Rahane was captain. In the long term, I would still be okay with that. But you need someone to stand up to Kohli, and I feel like Shastri is just there, just giving him a reach around all the time. And I stand by those comments, but I perhaps I don't give him as much credit as he does. He does have some good traits as well. But yeah, what do you guys think about that?
I completely agree to the fact that Shastri isn't great. And when it comes to combining Shastri and Kohli, things go even worse.
Hmm.
However, I do believe that in this particular series, where we obviously know that India completely outplayed Australia in this last three tests, what India needed was motivation, and Shastri was the best source of that motivation. Uh,
Right.
India probably did not need the uh, to change their techniques much. They only had one bad session in the first test in Adelaide, and the results we saw. But
Yeah.
more or less for the remainder of the test, even in the first test, Indian team was on point, and Australian team, even though full strength, was significantly lacking throughout the series. So I do believe the thing that India needed was motivation. Shastri provided it, but on the whole, I still do believe that Shastri is not a great coach to help the players improve their techniques or work out what exactly they should be doing.
Yeah, he's more like a life coach, I feel, than a cricket coach. Well, that's what he comes across as. Um, I also really don't like his selection, but then again, I don't know if the selection was fueled by Kohli or Shastri. Like, in the first test, not playing Jadeja. In the past, they've dropped Pujara, they've dropped Rahane. All of these decisions have come when Shastri's in charge and Kohli is captain. So don't get me wrong, let's give him credit where credit is due. He probably was the excellent motivator, but yeah, it's he still has some gaping flaws. Don't let this cover that up. I hope people realize that, and I hope this isn't like an excuse to keep him on forever and ever. And not to mention, like under him, we've choked in some really, really big limited over games, and yeah, I just don't like the combination of them both. Honestly, if Rahane was a long-term test captain, I'd be okay with it because they kind of it'll bring out two good sides of the same thing. Whereas Kohli and Shashi will just bring out the same emotion and perhaps put rationale to the back of the head. If everything is led by emotion, then you're probably not going to end up in the best place. But if you have emotion and like a cool, calming influence on you, it's a good combination in the long term.
One thing I do feel is that Shastri wasn't able to screw up India's selection because his hand was pretty much forced in all the test matches except the first one.
Sorry, even the first one, because Rav just mentioned that Jadeja was left out. Jadeja had concussion in the
Yeah.
from the
Oh,
T20
yeah.
overs from the T20 series, so that was probably why he was left out as well.
I don't think so. I think Jadeja was available to play for the first test, and he was dropped. I mean, we'll find out later,
Yeah.
but
Or we may never.
uh, we may never. But also, like him playing Washington Sundar on the final test. Now, don't get me wrong; it proved to be a great move because Sundar played really well. But if you're going on stats alone and his experience, there's no way in hell that Kuldeep Yadav should not have played that test. I feel so bad for Kuldeep Yadav because he's been touring with them for like 5 or 6 months. Last time he played at the I don't know if he played at the Wacker. Well, last time he toured Oz, he had a brilliant game, right? There is no reason why he shouldn't have played, but because the fact that India won, that selection kind of I don't know decision will be swept under the rug. I don't know if you agree with me, Arg, and Foothill on that one.
Yeah, I don't think so because like yeah, Kuldeep was a bit hard done by, but you can't expect him to bat number seven, can you? With the injuries to Jadeja and Ashwin, definite both of them. The selection definitely called for an all-rounder, and it had to be Washington
Yes,
Sundar.
I
Now
agree.
you could have
Yeah,
left
I
out one of the
agree.
No, no,
extra
I
fast
agree.
bowlers,
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
signing for
Drop
Kuldeep, but not
no, no,
Sundar.
no. So yeah, okay, yeah. So playing Sundar, I get it, but playing Natarajan, who averages like 29 in first class cricket for India, and is like bowling 130 k's an hour. Okay, he played well. I just don't think he's going to be playing a lot of Test cricket. But playing both Washington and Kuldeep would have been a much smarter move. Now it turned out. I think Natarajan played okay. I don't think he played amazing, right? I don't think he's a test player for the future. Amazing limited overs player, and he will continue to do that. But yet again, I think that this is the inconsistencies in the decision making and selection are being apparent. Also, not playing Shubman Gill and not playing Rishabh Pant in the first test is also beyond belief because Rishabh was the highest run scorer in the practice games. He looked amazing, and yeah, I don't know. It just the lack of consistency and sometimes the way he speaks about his players in the press, like he's slated Rishabh Pant in the press, like a lot of the time, like saying that he needs to improve his game as a whole. Like, imagine the confidence that would sap from you as a 22-year-old player. I feel like a lot of his kind of rationale is just comes from emotion and not much thinking what's the best thing to say or what's the best thing to do, you know. But yeah, what do you guys think about leaving Rishabh and Shubman out for the first test? Because Shubman averages 70 in first class cricket. He should have had his test cap a long time ago. And what a fucking amazing player he is.
I do believe that Shubman deserves a spot, and he got one and he did well. But since uh, correct me if I'm wrong, Prithvi already had a cap, right, before the series.
But Prithvi had played in India before and had done relatively well. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
So that's the reason I think this management went with the thought process that Prithvi hadn't done anything for him to lose his spot. Practically, you can only play either Prithvi or Shubman, right? So
Yeah.
and you already had Mayank Agarwal on the other end.
Hmm.
So I think they couldn't have done anything else. As long as Prithvi
Yeah.
did not underperform, and he did, so then they got a chance to replace him with Shubman. So I think that selection is fair enough.
Okay, I suppose like he in at the test level at least, even though his like recent form for Prithvi had been pretty awful, right? He was the kind of the more established opener, and in 2018, I felt so bad for him in 2018, 2019 because he was meant to play on that tour and he was in great form, and then he had like a back injury, right, and that kind of hampered him. Maybe there was a bit of that sentiment, like, okay, look, you this was your time to shine last time, here you come again, like make the most of it. Okay, I can kind of get on board with it, but yeah, if Jadeja was not played because of if it wasn't for the concussion reason, then that was a bad decision making. And I also feel like Punt should have played straight away. He was so good in the last series. Like I feel like that was a mistake. And I feel like Kohli could have been behind that as well, to be fair. I think Kohli would prefer to play Saha if he had choice and free reign. Um,
To be honest, at that stage, just before the match started, everyone was harping about that India has a pretty good batting lineup.
mm,
So they do not need to explicitly play Pant as a batsman, considering that he's definitely an inferior wicket keeper.
yeah.
And that selection, again, I kind of agree with it. It's fine that Saha was chosen ahead of Pant later on in the series when the Indian batting lineup thinned out
Mm.
with Kohli missing. I think
But
yes,
okay. Oh, okay.
Saha need to make some space for
Do you remember how
Pant.
well Bunt played in the last series? Like he was one of the top three batsmen in the whole
I do
series.
remember, but the problem is that in Australia, catches win matches, as we have seen throughout the series,
Yeah.
and I think the team management thought that we need to make sure that our keeper is top notch.
Okay. Yeah. I think Mr. Wicketkeeper very much agrees with that decision, but he's not here to express that. I've always been, if you're not playing Punt as a keeper, just play him as a batsman. He's better than Vihari. He is better than he's better than Mayank Agarwal. He was better than Prithvi Shaw. Like that's something which I feel like they could have done. Okay, fair enough. Play play Saha. I get it. Probably the best wicket keeper that India has ever seen, and probably the best wicket keeper in the world. I know people might disagree with that, but yeah.
No, he isn't the best keeper on the planet
Well,
right
who do you
now.
think's the better than him?
There's several more people better than
Rizwan.
him. He's just that he's
Rizwan is the best
better
keeper batsman in
than
the world.
Saha
Well,
or
no,
any.
De Kock would be as well. But Rizwan has been amazing since he started playing for Pakistan. And we will come to Rizwan later when we're talking about the Pakistan South Africa series as well.
I'm not saying keeper batsman. I'm just meaning as the best keeper. The best keeper has to be
Well, as a
Saha,
pure
surely.
keeper, Rizwan is
Or
excellent as well.
you
But the thing is, he bats better than Saha. And let's not forget BJ Watling from New Zealand as well. There's
yeah,
quite a good number of good wicket keepers
okay,
going
fair
around.
enough.
But it seems India are
I
the
think
only team that
keeper.
have this like big
Mm.
choice to make
Okay, fair
between
enough.
an excellent wicketkeeper who's an okay batsman versus
Right.
an excellent batsman who's an okay
Yeah.
wicketkeeper. Most of the other
He's
teams
not an okay batsman.
don't seem to have that decision
How,
to make.
yeah. Yeah. He's yeah. He's not an okay batsman in Test match cricket when it comes to playing abroad. His record is truly awful. When it comes to limited overs, I think he's a good batsman. I think he has a lot to. Well, he's been brilliant in the IPL for many seasons. You know, like it's been kind of inconsistent, but he has shown like he's capable of proper proper brilliance with the bat. Okay, brilliant. I think that was a pretty good general discussion of what happened. We talked about the selection and the overall performance. So let's go and deep dive a bit into each test. How did this miraculous series come to be? So, first off, last episode, we ended up with me crying after the 36 all out and me saying a few strong words about Shastri and Kohli in the showers. And shortly after that, we witnessed an incredible fight back in Melbourne. Now, Mr. Foothill, do you want to kind of walk us through what happened there quickly?
Yeah, sure. Now, that was one of the games I actually didn't follow too closely. I was taking a break from Reddit for unrelated reasons at that time, and as a result, because I
Yep.
didn't have any moderation to do,
Yep.
I also wasn't paying too much attention to the test. I was actually watching the Sri Lanka in South Africa test, which ended up being an absolute bloodbath because of all the injuries we had.
Right. Right.
But do you know one thing this
Yeah.
the second test showed was India had a lot of depth with bowling. That was when Siraj got his test debut, and he did pretty well. 2 for 40 in the first innings, um,
Yep.
and 3 for 37 in the second innings. And remember, Umesh Yadav also went off injured in the second innings of that test. So Siraj really had to step up and be,
Yeah.
essentially lead the attack alongside Bumrah in the absence of Yadav. And I think he did an excellent job
Yep.
on debut. Um, as for
Yeah.
Australia, there was
Yeah.
not really a lot to write home about. Some pretty poor performances throughout. As always, Hazelwood and Cummins sort of carried the team, but it wasn't going to be enough to get them over the line as Rahane made an excellent century and India wrapped up a pretty comfortable 8 wicket win.
Yeah. Just another point there is that how good were Cummins and Hazelwood throughout that series? Just they were so good, and like the Indian batting was brave and gutsy because it had to be. Like they weren't given anything throughout the series. Like just Hazelwood and Cummins. Sorry, Hazelwood and Cummins was so good. But yeah, you're absolutely right. An amazing fight back by Rahane. Surprise! I think that was the minute like everyone was like, okay, maybe this isn't just a walk all over. Yeah, but Rahane played fantastic. That really, really was a fabulous, fabulous comeback. Right. Should we move on to the third test? I mean, we labeled it the Blockathon. Now, this really, really was an amazing balanced test match where I think we saw everything. So, the third test, I believe Warner came back, and there was lots of hype around Warner, right? And Warner he did not look like he could play Test cricket with his
He
current
was
injury.
obviously unfit. He could
I'm
barely move in
from an
the
Aussie
field, even like
perspective.
and running between wickets. He was
Yeah,
rushed back, and I think that was a pretty horrible
yeah,
decision by the selectors.
he was rushed back. I agree with you.
Yeah, that was bad.
I think that was a terrible decision by the selectors. But on the bright side, they had Will Pukowski. I think that he made his debut on that test, right?
Yep,
Uh,
yep.
he looks like a great player. He looks really good in the field and an exciting prospect for Australia in the future. Now we're talking about debutants. I just want to also mention that my boy Shubman Gill. He's been, for those of you that have followed my opinions, or I don't think I have that many, I don't think many of you do, but I have been saying that Shubman Gill will be the best player in the world one day for a very, very long time. He played so well in both the test before this and this one. He looked amazing every time he got in. And then obviously the other debutants for the Oz series was like Cameron Green, who'd played before. Um, with the ball, I'm sorry, I don't really see what the hype was with Green. I don't think he got a wicket throughout the whole series. But with the bat, he looks really comfortable, good in the field. So I think exciting prospects for Australia, especially with Pekovsky coming through in this test. Um, but yeah, do you guys, Arg, do you want to walk us through this test match a little bit?
Okay. So Sydney Test again. I think India started strong, but then kind of lost their way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the first innings, right? I was so worried when watching that first innings. Labuschagne and Smith, 91 and 131 respectively. I thought, yeah,
Yeah.
that was game over. I think I don't know what it was. Was it 160 for two foothill? I don't remember. It was a menacing score, right? I think 182 for two, maybe something along the
It was
lines of
actually
that.
worse than that. It was two
And
for
India managed
206, and from there Australia collapsed. They only make
two for
338, and
200.
Yeah.
that too only because Steve
Yeah,
Smith was the not-out batsman at the other end. If you take out his contribution, then after the third
yeah,
wicket fell, then Australia would have been like all out 250 if it wasn't for Smith at the other end.
yeah. So I think a lot of credit needs to go to the Indian bowlers there because something that we've seen in this Test series is one team goes on top and the other one fights back like throughout the Test series. So if two for 206, as Foothill said, for them to be all out 130 of 338, I think that was a brilliant effort on the from the Indian bowlers and some pretty poor batting I have to say from the Aussie side, but it set up a beautiful Test match. Then India went to bat, you know, there it was a proper gutsy performance. It wasn't. I think apart from Sharma and Gill, the rest of the team didn't look too comfortable. Apart from Rishabh Pant and Jadeja, right? It was kind of like a no one excelled in the Indian innings, but as a kind of unit, they managed to do okay, getting 244. They still had like 100. Oz still had 100-run lead, and yeah, it was a pretty brutal performance. Then, of course, we go on to the Australia second innings, where Labuschagne and Smith, like they came into form, both of them at the right time. They managed to get to 312 and declared. One thing I do think is that I think they took a bit too long to make these runs. I feel like they could have been quicker. Um, I feel like even I don't know. There were lots of talks about Tim Payne and the declaration timing and stuff. What do you think about that?
Yeah, but they still had 130 odd overs to bowl India out.
Yeah.
That should be decent. So the declaration was timed perfectly. It's just that the bowlers were so tired after the two matches and bowling in the
Yeah.
first innings of the third match that they just couldn't get them out, and the pitch had nothing in it to help them out.
Well, let's also talk about the tactics that Australia persisted with on day five, both in Sydney and Brisbane. All this like short pitch rubbish, as though we're talking about,
Yep.
India 1999, where you can just rock up and they've got some no hoper from the Ranji Trophy, some no hoper top order batsmen, and you've got Brett Lee bowling 150 k's, and you can just bowl bounces and they'll
Mm.
get out. It's not like that in 2021, right? India are a very
Yep.
strong, robust team. They're
Mm.
not going to be bounced out like some amateur subcontinent tourist side. They're professional, they're excellent, and you've got to try and get them out like, as though you're playing in
Yeah.
England. So attack the stumps, look for the nick. There was just none of that from Australia on day five on either of the third or the fourth tests, and that for me, like, that's got to be a pretty strong like indictment of sort of a leadership by Justin Langer, Tim Payne, by the bowling coach, whoever that is. I don't know. I
Yeah.
think it might be Troy Cooley, not sure. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, the tactics were just appalling, just like they were at
With,
Headingley as
with
well.
yeah. With that being said, I agree with you. Cummins and Hazelwood still bowled amazing. Like they were so frugal with everything that they gave away. Like I'm just looking here. Hazelwood had an economy of 1.5. Cummins had he bowled 26 overs. It was incredible bowling by them two. But on the other side of the coin, like so many people hyped up Nathan Lyon before this series. He played like absolute dog shit throughout this series. And I don't know, people are saying he bowled well and the Indians played him well. I'm sorry, he did not bowl well. He was like I could just hear Shane Warne like ripping his hair out every time he was bowling, and he had the wrong field. He wasn't aggressive enough, etc., etc. And Mitchell Stark as well. In that test in the second innings, he went for 66 runs without a wicket and an economy of 3. Like Lyon and Stark were the two weak links, and to think, I find it so hard to believe that we could say that of Mitchell Stark of all people. Like this guy has ripped through the Indian order in previous
But I think
series.
that's probably
So
because you don't
yeah, it
watch
was
Australia enough. Stark has been,
right,
I don't know what the right way to describe it. Stark has been like misleadingly good, I would say. If you look at his career stats, his average is tick under 28,
right,
and you'd think he actually bowls that well a lot of the time. But just like in the last time India toured, was it 2018-19? He was dreadful in that series. He was dreadful in this
yep,
series. He didn't do much at the Ashes. He only played the one test. I feel like we've seen the best of Mitchell Stark. He's 31 in 5 days' time. I feel like we've seen the best of Mitchell Stark in the red ball game.
right,
He's still good in pink ball tests, and obviously one day cricket, T20
yeah,
cricket. But I feel like he's just over it. He's past his best in Test match cricket, and he's a liability going forward.
yeah.
He's a liability for Australia.
Well, something interesting is that I think the broadcasters brought up that against the tail, he averages like 16, which is amazing. Like, he's one of the best at tearing up the tails throughout the world. And throughout this series, the commentators were like, "Oh, well, give Mitchell Stark the ball, and he'll wrap them all up." Sorry, that was such a bad accent. But basically, that's what the like everyone kept saying. But he was awful even to the tail, right? Like he couldn't even get like
Yeah,
numbers 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 out. So yeah,
there seems to be some confidence issues with Stark. He's not confident enough with his bowling. It may be mental thing.
I think it's like people were mentioning his injuries. Yeah, yeah. People were saying like, I just wanted to bowl.
Here's a great stat for you about Mitchell Stark. I've got his stats guru open right now. First match in
Yeah,
a series, this is bowling, 97 wickets at 24. Second match in a series, 76 wickets at also at 24. Third match in a
right.
series, 58 at 32. Fourth match in a series, 18 at 37. So the longer a series goes on, the worse he gets, and that's
Yeah,
been a constant throughout his career.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I can see that he look. I feel like
He
the way
lacks
he runs
consistency,
up.
basically.
Yeah, he lacks consistency. He burns out. He burns out. Yeah, he gets tired.
Yeah, he burns out. In fact, I think the way Payne used his bowlers wasn't great. They were overbowled a lot. He could have used Cameron Green a lot more. He could have used Labuschagne a lot more. He did not.
Yeah, he didn't use
Yeah,
Labuschagne at
yeah, he did
all.
not.
Basically,
Even
that's
Cameron
a
Green,
shame.
he didn't use much. So his
Yeah,
four primary bowlers were overworked. I have the same criticism, however, for Rahane as well. He overused the bowlers. However, India escaped that because the bowlers eventually got injured. So next match, a fresh set of bowlers. So, but his Rahane's bowling changes were terrible. I can say that.
fair enough. Fair enough. I see that. Yeah. So I think we talked about from the Aussie bowling perspective here. Like I said, Cummins and Hazelwood were fantastic. I agree. The tactics weren't amazing, but they were spot on. They did exactly what they wanted to do. Um, so perhaps we can look from the Indian batting perspective in the second innings of that Sydney Test, and I thought, when they first came out, Sharma and Gill, I thought they were looking to like attack this and then get these runs, which would have been shocking and amazing. But both of them got out. I'm a bit disappointed with Rohit Sharma always getting the starts, not really converting it. And I really think like when it comes to chasing down a total, even if it isn't Test match cricket, having Rohit Sharma at one end would be phenomenal, right? And then we saw the amazing Cheteshwar Pujara, who had been slated, absolutely slated by the Aussie commentators, and it was really, really annoying me because all the Aussie commentators were saying basically, "Oh, he's causing so much trouble for the person on the other end. They're not rotating and they're getting themselves out. There's pressure." I don't think they remember what happened 2 years ago. Do you guys? I don't know how short are their memories. 2 years ago, this guy absolutely single-handedly destroyed the Aussie bowling attack, and in this time around, he did it in his own way. I get it. Very, very frustrating to watch. and at times I think he could be a bit more proactive. But how can you have such a short memory that this guy absolutely destroyed your bowling attack 2 years ago, and he scored 77 of 205 balls. That was a that was just. I mean, this isn't the Brisbane match we're talking about. The Sydney one. That on its own in Sydney was an amazing innings. What do you guys think?
I think overall Pujara didn't have that great of a series compared to last time. He only averaged 33.87, whereas last time, well, I can't remember, but it must have been closer to triple figures. His series average. He didn't get any hundreds. There was only 100 from India, in fact, by Rahane. Uh,
Yep.
but yeah, he didn't do so well this time around. He just occupied the crease a lot without scoring too many runs. Um, like what I think what Shane Warne was slightly critical of him. I don't know who you're like saying by name was most critical of him. Shane Warne was like, I think he made a pretty gentle criticism, which I think is pretty fair. So Warne said something like, Pujara faces so many dot balls. He could take his game to the next level if he just got good at basically dropping and running. So you're still playing a
Yeah.
nice forward defensive shot, but you just nudge it into a little gap and you set off for a quick
Um,
single. And if he starts
there were
doing that,
loads
then
of
even if
times
he has a
where,
series
yeah,
like this where he's
yeah,
facing over 900 balls, he's going to be
yeah.
averaging over 40 for the series instead of
Okay.
just 33.
The thing is, like, it wasn't just Shane Warne who made it. Ricky Ponting made like a pretty aggressive statement towards. I'm pretty sure Alan Border also said something as well, right? And I'm just like thinking, look, these guys, how could you say that about him? As an Indian fan, we perhaps could say that about him because we've watched him play like this forever. But how can these guys say that? Because in the last series he played, he destroyed your team. Now, Foothill, you say that he hasn't had a good series. I disagree with you. I think he's had a really good series. I don't think he's had a great series. I think he's had a really good series because he stopped India from falling over, right? Um, Now, don't get me wrong. I still agree with them that he can be more proactive, but if it wasn't for him, there would be no backbone to this team. I feel like he single handedly stopped a collapse, and I feel like the first Test match made him kind of realize I have to be this anchoring role for this team. Even if I'm not scoring runs, I will not let another batting collapse happen ever again. And he took that kind of mindset and fought it through. Um, and on the fifth day of a test match, 77 of 205 balls. What more do you want from him? I thought that
Yeah,
he played that
I do
beautifully.
agree. I think Pujara had a brilliant series. He did the job what India wanted out of him. Here, I think the stats completely
Mm,
lie and don't project the actual situation. In a series where we saw so few big scores, the biggest impact Pujara had was tiring out the Aussie bowlers, the four primary bowlers, and that is where Australia faltered. The bowlers were tired
yeah,
in the last two matches. They could not hit the proper lines and lengths that they wanted to, and that is where Indian middle order and lower order capitalized. Coming to the point where Pujara is slow and not rotating the strike, I think that is dependent. A lot depends on the partner Pujara is playing with. Usually it's Kohli. Kohli comes immediately after Pujara at number four. So it's generally a pair of Pujara and Kohli. So Kohli is aggressive.
mm,
He plays the shots while Pujara, on the other hand, holds the fort. Here we had Rahane on number four, who again was a relatively slower player. He held his own fort on his end. Pujara held his fort on his end, and that saw the scoring slow down considerably. A fix that I was always hoping for, but India did not implement, was get Rishabh Pant at number four and keep Rahane at number five, so that we have a combo where Pujara and Pant are aggressive, and then maybe Pant and Rahane, again, one is aggressive and one is holding the fort. If let's say Pant gets out, then of course there needs to be a lot more conservative batting, and then Pujara and Rahane can bat, both of them, with their own pace. But yeah, I think. the criticism that Pujara did not rotate the strike with Rahane is relatively unfounded. And it could have been. It's not Pujara's fault per se. It could have just been fixed if there's a more aggressive batsman on the other end.
Hmm. Okay, I can kind of see that view. I mean, I was frustrated more so in the Brisbane match seeing Pajara not go for the runs because that target was more achievable, right? Getting 330 is way easier in the fourth innings than getting
No, I disagree
430
here as
or
well
however
because
much India
um,
needed, right? 400,
at the
so
beginning of the
470.
day,
So,
India's
um,
job was to actually, save the test match, not go for the win. Primarily, they wanted a draw out of it. So Pujara did exactly that. But when
yeah,
India saw that okay, there's been a lot of time, there's nothing much happening on the pitch, or the Aussie bowlers are not able to hit the couple of tracks that there are on the pitch. So I think at that stage is when the Indian batting
yeah,
lineup started thinking that okay, we can push for the win, but we they also need to be careful that in case a wicket falls or a couple of wickets fall, we need a backup to draw out the match. And I don't think it made sense for Pujara to go for the runs. Neither in the Brisbane. I was talking primarily about the Brisbane match. It did not make sense for Pujara to go for the runs.
okay. Yeah, I think in this match, I don't think it made sense for Pajara to go for the runs. I think in the Brisbane match, it did.
Yeah, yeah,
But I agree. For this match, right? You had Jadeja who had a broken finger. You had Vihari who well we didn't know he was going to be injured, and but Ashwin was also like injured. So for this match, it made perfect sense for Pujara to eat up as much time as he could, and I'm with you on that. Like he played that fourth inning, 77 of 205 balls was perfect. That was absolutely perfect. We couldn't ask anything more of him. Um, just another few words on Rishabh Pant and Vihari and Ashwin. Punt was amazing. He just by being so aggressive, he made the Aussie bowlers bowl a defensive lines and lengths, which made it so much easier for everyone else. So that aggression went such a long way, and I'm so happy that he's getting the plaudits that he deserves because he's a fabulous player, and like India's future is even if he's just as a batsman in the future, our future like kind of revolves around him. So he has to play every test match, even if it's just as a batsman. And this kind of proved it. But then we move on to Vihari and Ashwin, who like that is so impressive. Vihari 23 of 161 balls, Ashwin 39 of 128. Just wow. Just wow. Vihari playing with a torn hamstring and Ashwin who was badly bruised and injured, and who's invited to come to the Gabba by Tim Payne himself. What a selfless gesture. Yeah, but like that was, I think, even though Kohli wasn't there, I think that's the good that Kohli's had on Indian cricket. That fight, that is something which I think I we can credit to Kohli, even though I disagree with a lot of the things that he's done.
yeah. True. One is the aggression. There's nobody who would steamroll India over. They do fight back. And second is I
Yeah,
think a lot of credit should go to Kohli for developing India's fast bowlers. That has made the difference
right.
in the team over the past few years. And I think Kohli and Shastri to some extent encouraged fast bowling in the domestic circuit as well as in primarily in the international circuit, but then that trickles down into the domestic circuit as well. So
Hmm.
that is one reason why India has been successful over the past couple of years.
Okay, yep, fair enough. I agree. I think also Bharat Aaron deserves a lot of credit because
And
like
so
they've
does
become
Dravid.
they've done so well under him, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. So with the India A and the under 19s, yeah, I completely agree. But anyway, that was a fab. Honestly, the Sydney Test match is one of my favorites because I went to bed at like 2 a.m. thinking I need to get up tomorrow morning, but this is a lost cause, right? Um, I woke up and only 3 wickets had fallen, and I was like, wow, just wow, like incredible resilience. And the thing is, if either one of Vihari or Ashwin had got out, I reckon it would have been a collapse because Jadeja had a broken finger and like he was taking pain injections and stuff. And after Jadeja, it was 9-10 Jack, whatever, right? It would have been a very very easy tale to go through. So them two surviving, like massive credit for that. With that being said, I don't think Vihari is a long-term test match batsman for India. I think there are plenty of better players out there than him, but that's a debate
No,
for
I
another
do
time.
agree, and
I think maybe I
in the
might
short
disagree,
term,
but
India is gonna
yeah,
have a bit of a selection problem because the Aussie tour produced a ton of great players. But in the longer term, I think the team can stabilize.
yeah.
Vihari, I do not see him play a lot of matches for India, especially abroad. Um, uh, Pant will be a regular
Mm,
feature. Saha might just be a feature in India, not in Sena countries, especially. And then you have Prithvi Shaw. I don't know. Yeah,
mm.
he'd be good at home. I hope he, gets back up from the confidence that he's lost and
He'll be good
works
at
on his
home.
technique.
He has been good.
Yeah,
Yeah, his confidence
yeah,
is an all-time low. Like he has been scoring runs since the age of since a
yeah.
very little age. He is an exceptionally talented player. Like no one don't take it away from him, right? But his confidence is so low right now, and with Shubman Gill just standing up and letting the world know like how good he is. Something I've been saying for ages. I'm going to say it again and
Hmm.
again. um, when Shubman Gill plays in England, he's not an opener. Gill is not an opener. He doesn't
Hmm.
normally open apart from like in the IPL, right? So the fact that he was opening in Australia, playing out of position, even though he's done it before, it was like massive credit to him. I think in the long term, Shubman Gill should be playing number 4 or 5 because he will score massive amounts of runs. And if he's facing the new ball, then you're potentially losing one of your best players really early on when you don't have to. So
The reason he cannot play number 4 or 5 is
Kohli and
because we
Rahane.
have a pretty
Yeah, yeah,
stable
yeah.
3-4-5: Pujara, Kohli, and
Rahane.
Rahane.
Yeah. It's hard, but the thing is, like, because Kohli wasn't playing then, I thought it would be better to play Gill at number 4, but it didn't turn out to be the case. He still did a really good job. He stood up when the team needed him, but if I was them, I'd be saving Gill just because he will get you so many runs. His average is 68 in first class cricket. It's ridiculous, dude. He's so good. Um, but anyway, I think we've discussed this match.
Yeah. I think we should move on to the next one. And I think there's not a lot to be said about Gaba. The pictures of Gaba express themselves beautifully. There's not a lot to say. Everything worked in India's favor.
Right. I would say losing the toss did not work in India's favor. Like that was a bad
I don't
toss to lose
think
to
so
Gabba.
because the pitch did not have many demons in it, so it was fine.
I don't know. I feel like it was like if India had won the toss, they would have definitely gone the other way, right? But what do you think about that for Hill?
Sorry, I don't think I understand your question. You think India would have bowled first if they won the toss? Yeah, maybe. Lots of teams do when they come to the Gabba. They win the toss and bowl.
But I just remember like that was such a big toss to with the rain and stuff. I think with Aussies bowlers, the thing is like if India had batted first at the Gabba, the Aussie bowlers would have been destroyed because they'd been playing 3 or 4 days before that, and they'd been bowling. They bowled 130 overs. So imagine if they had to bowl 100 overs for the first innings itself. They'd have to bowl 230 overs within the space of like 5 days. So that's why I think that that did go in Oz's favor. But y- you know, fair enough. I agree with you, Arg, that like in general things went India's way, but the toss was a big toss. I think it was a blow to
Something
lose that
interesting is
toss.
that the team that won the toss in this series did not go on to win the match throughout
Right.
the
Okay.
way.
Throughout the way,
India
throughout the
won
whole
one
series.
toss, and that was the first match.
Wow. Wow. That's really fascinating, dude. That is actually a great stat, which I've not seen so far. But That's really interesting. That's really interesting. I'm sure it's a coincidence, but yeah. Anyway, Arga, you were saying that there's the pictures from the Gabba kind of explain everything, where they had been kindly invited by Tim Payne, and okay,
It's
that's
just that
fine.
I feel that the just emotion around this test was something surreal. I could not believe that India won the test. I I never expected it to happen.
Yeah,
I didn't even hope for it to happen. I just wanted a
neither
draw
did
and
I.
that would be fine.
I don't know.
And seriously, these guys won it. And
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, I need to make sure I'm
yeah.
not dreaming.
Yeah, it was very similar point of view from me. I was in shock that they won it after losing the toss, after having 11 wickets between the bowling attack. Like it's just outstanding. What was it? I thought Thakur played so well, dude. His innings in the first innings, like at that point when
Hmm.
Washington and Thakur came into bat, I thought
Yeah.
this is the easiest Australia win ever. But just wow, dude, they just took it by storm. And yeah, incredible from a debutant to be like that, from Washington and Shardul Tackle to be like that. Just outstanding stuff. Um, yeah, it was beautiful to watch. Foothill, any comments about the Aussie performance?
Australian performances in that test, they were not great. Couple of individual performances that were commendable. Minus Labuschagne's first innings 100. Um, Josh Hazelwood's 5 for in the first innings also with the ball. And that's about it. From there, the wheels really fell off for Australia. Steve Smith got a nice 50 in the second innings, but they sort of didn't know what to do. I felt watching that second innings. They didn't know if they should bat aggressively to set up a big total.
What do you think? How did when you were watching it, Foothill? How did you feel when Washington Sundar and Mr. Tackle were at the crease? Because do you think that Aussies bowled well to them, or do you think that they
I
just
didn't
played
see the whole partnership. I
they
saw them
played
get
well?
the first 20 runs or so. So from about 6 for 186, I think it was, to about
Yeah,
6 for 220, and I think there might have been a break, like a lunch break or something at that time, or a tea break. I forget.
yeah,
But I didn't come back after the break. I just followed on cricket for now and then.
yeah,
But it seemed pretty obvious that they were playing well, that they were not being challenged at all by the bowlers.
yeah.
Um, I wish Cricket still had this. They used to have this back in the day. Hawkeye data, ball by ball, so you could load up a player's innings and see exactly where the
Right.
bowlers bowled to him. But I would assume that the bowling was pretty poor to the to
Yeah.
those two, to Sundar and Thakur.
Yeah, I think Sundar and Thakur, like they stood up when their team needed. I was so surprised at how good they were. Like Thakur has proven that he can bat, but he averages like 18 with the bat in first class cricket, and we're not expecting it. He was just amazing. That aggression, I was just so pleasantly surprised by that. And not only did they stop a Australia win, they they put India within very close range of um, taking a first innings lead, which was unimaginable at the point that they were at. Like what Foothill said, brilliant partnership, and fair play to them, because you couldn't expect
Yeah.
anything from Saini, because Saini was actually injured, right? Siraj was coming in next, and Natarajan has like he can't really hold a bat, so them two standing up when they did was fantastic. Um, and then we come on to Australia's second innings, where I think they did well. And maybe now is the point where we talk about the declaration and the kind of criticism that Tim Payne received about not being too aggressive. Now, in hindsight, I think that his declaration was the fact that he didn't declare was the right decision because India won, right? But
Yeah.
everyone was screaming at him from the commentators booth, "Why aren't you declaring? Why aren't you declaring?" But given,
Especially that guy Shane Warne. I started hating him after the
right,
series. I hated him before,
mm,
but this pushed me over the line. That guy needs to be a million miles away from a commentary box.
I think that he gives some good insight, but he just gets really carried away. And one thing which really pissed me off is that in the Indian second innings, um, Pajara had been hit in the head by Hazelwood, and Shane Warne was like, "Oh, what terrific sportsmanship by Hazelwood." He went up to Pajara and asked him if you're okay, Pudge. Whereas what Hazelwood had actually said, "Did you see that one, Pudge?" And like, I was like, "What are you? How could you say that?"
Well, that's a bit harsh. You can't expect Shane Warne to know what was being said. He just guessed.
No, but why would he say no? No, but why would he say that in the first place? Like, it was such aggressive body language of the thing. He was like, "Oh, what great sportsmanship! I'm so proud of this Australian team."
Oh, right,
And
right.
what was actually being said?
I didn't actually
Yeah,
see
what
it.
was
Yeah.
actually being said was it was like him sledging him, saying, "Did you see that one?" Because Pajaro had a butterfly in his face before that, and he said, "I wait, I couldn't see." So he stopped Hazelwood. Hazelwood came in and said, "Do you see that one when Pajaro was out on the floor?" Yeah, so I agree. Warren is really hot and cold. I still think that he does give some fantastic insight. He's more of a kind of IPL kind of commentator for my liking, but I still like him in the Test match arena. But I agree, he gets really, really carried away. But yeah, as we were saying, Australia bowled out for 294. The issue, one of the big things here was that the weather was very unpredictable, right? Um, I asked Foothill, who is our Australian expert, and he said that before the match, like, good chances of rain on day 2, day 4, day 5, and probably going to be a rained out draw, and that will be favourable for India. Now, going into the final day's play, India
I was
needed
hoping for
300
rain.
and something to win, right? And I was also hoping for
Yeah,
rain at
yeah.
multiple
For
points, even
first
even
like
during the final
3
day.
hours in
I
the
was
match
hoping for
till
rain
the
at
middle of
certain points.
the second session, I was hoping for rain.
I didn't believe it, dude. Even into 50 runs left, I was like, let the rain come, just block it out now." It was brutal. But yeah,
Yeah,
what an innings, what a test match. Shubman Gill, 91. He really set the
yeah,
tone because when he was batting with Pajara got like maybe 10% of the runs, right? And Gill looks so fluent. And what was really interesting is after the test match, Sehwag tweeted an article of Gill being like, Gill's father saying that, "I'm very disappointed that my son didn't get 100." And like, just say typical Indian parents. But Gill played fabulous. Pajara literally took everything. He was battered left, right, and center. What an innings! What an innings! And even Rahane's innings, I thought when Rahane came out, I was like, he's gonna block this game. It's a draw. I'll be okay with that. The rain's gonna come at some point, and we're just gonna walk away, right? But Rahane was such an aggressive little 24, and the way he got out, I feel like a bit unfortunate for him. Like, that's a really silly way to get out. He deserved better. But then comes in Rishabh Pant, and the partnership with Pajara was like a battle of ice and fire. You have Pajara on one end taking everything, and Pant just being aggressive on the other, but being calculated in his aggression, which was amazing. Um, and yeah, at this point, I thought India would have. At this point, I was thinking, yeah, they'd go for the win. But Pajara gets out on a DRS call, and in comes Agarwal, and Agarwal's positive, right? And I'm thinking maybe now, maybe that's good. But then Agarwal plays the stupid shot and gets out, and then comes Washington, and I was not expecting Washington to like deal with the bowling as easily as he did. The way he dealt with it, he only scored 22 runs, but the way he dealt with that bowling was fantastic. Just so aggressive and made it possible. Um, then he got out, and I was like, okay, let's get a draw and run away. I was like, yep. I don't know what you were thinking at that time, Arg. What were you feeling?
I was like, don't lose wickets till you are 10 runs short of the target. Once you are there, just
Yeah,
go for it.
yeah, I was feeling the same. And then Taco gets out, and I was like, okay, now I just want to draw. But then, yeah, Rishabh played so well at the end. Foothill, before we kind of wrap this up, this kind of discussion up, uh, how are you feeling from like the Aussie perspective that day? Did you feel like you were going to win the game throughout the day, or at what points did your feelings kind of change?
Well, first of all, you have to bear in mind that I watch this series as a neutral, as I do for most Australia games. Just because I'm an Australian national doesn't mean I'm an Australian supporter.
Yeah,
The only time I really support Australia like that is
yeah.
against England.
Even from a
No,
neutral perspective.
from what I watched of
Yeah,
I'd still support England when they play Australia.
some people do. I don't know what's wrong with them. But anyway,
Yeah.
On day
Yeah.
five. On day
Yeah.
five, I think I had
But anyway,
no
yeah,
doubt
go
that
ahead.
India would win. Um, I remember we were talking about it. We were talking about it for a while on our
Really?
Discord chat, and I think at various points of the day I said India have got this in the bag. All they have to do
Yeah.
is get to a situation where they need 100 from the last 20 overs with some wickets in hand, and they'll easily do it. So I always thought India had the upper hand, especially after that the second wicket partnership they had, and then there was another good partnership for the fourth wicket. That's all they needed really. 329
Yeah.
was a tall order. You normally don't think that that's chaseable, but when you get off to a really good start, like Gill and Pujara gave, then it
Yeah.
becomes pretty easy. And,
Yeah.
and to add to that, from what I saw from the Australian bowlers throughout,
So
apart from
so the
Cummins
thing
on this occasion, they
yeah.
were pretty insipid, a lot of them, and it looked like it would be
Yeah.
quite easy for India to get the runs for me.
So there were certain points during the day, like Warren had said at the beginning of the day, India are going to win this match, and he kept that tone throughout. Whereas like Alan Border and Mark Wall were like, "Yeah, this is Australia's game to lose now. There's absolutely nothing the Indians can do. It's a bit of a write off." And like that kind of commentary really pissed me off. And another thing that really surprised me is that they have the win whiz, like the kind of prediction.
Yeah, yeah, that's complete nonsense.
Yeah, it is complete nonsense. But at one point, India was 1% to win, and I was like, that is like complete rubbish. Like that, this thing is stupid. It doesn't work. But everyone in the commentary box, barring Warren, thought that Australia would win that. But yeah, we all, like Arg said, like the pictures of the Gabba Test match say a million words, right? Like you don't need to just look at the scorecard, watch the highlights. Probably one of the most interesting days of Test cricket that I've seen in my life, and yeah, it will live long in the memory. And testament to everyone who kind of stood up that day. There were so many amazing performances, and yeah, maybe we'll wrap it up there. I could talk about it for a very long time, but an amazing, amazing test series, and one that will live very long in my memory, and hopefully that will, you know, make Angry Letters think twice before he writes off any team in the world ever again. Let's move on from the that series and talk about Pakistan versus South Africa. So this is going to be a very interesting series. So just to point out, Pakistan are completely out of the World Test Championship, so they don't really have anything to win in terms of that from this. Um, South Africa could, I believe, potentially qualify, but it's very, very unlikely. But for all intents and purposes, I think this is a dead rubber series if we consider the World Test Championship in terms of getting to the finals. But obviously, it's Test cricket, and winning a Test match or a Test series is obviously still very important, regardless of the Test Championship. Um, but yeah, Mister Foothill, do you want to quickly talk about this series?
Sure. So the first test is at Karachi, starting on the 26th of January. So that's tomorrow. For me, since it's the 25th for me here in Australia. And then there's the second test at Rawalpindi on
Yeah,
the 4th of February. So the tests, there's not like, I wouldn't quite call them back to back tests, but there's not exactly a huge gap between them. So just like with the
right.
SCG and Gabba test that we were talking about, potentially the toss could be very important in the second test as regards to tired bowlers and things like that. But in terms of making predictions,
Yeah,
it's a little bit hard to make predictions because it's been so long since Test cricket has been played in Pakistan, right? I mean, obviously last year that is Sri Lanka, we toured,
yeah,
we got beaten, but it's been a very long time since a Sena team has toured Pakistan. I can't quite remember, but I would guess it's the first time in like 14 or 15 years. So it's really hard to predict what's going to happen. If this is going to be in the UAE, no doubt, I think we'd all back Pakistan to comfortably win. But since they're not, since they're going back to
yeah,
Pakistan, it's a little bit harder to like call. That being said, it's only South Africa. Like they're rubbish, especially in subcontinent conditions. They're absolutely terrible. They've been murdered back to back in India. They were even worse in Sri Lanka last time they
yeah,
toured, which was a couple of years ago. And they've picked basically the same team. So the same sort of has-beens. I mean, they're good players, but they're has-beens when it comes to batting against spin in subcontinent conditions. Dean Elgar, Faf du Plessis, Quinton de
yeah,
Kock, Markram, I expect absolutely nothing out of them. If there's any spin at all in the
yeah,
pitch, Geez, I could see Pakistan pulling off an innings victory or two. So despite my sort of reservations about it not being held in the UAE, I'm still tipping a big
Yeah.
Pakistan whitewash. At least one innings victory, maybe two.
Do you think, is it fair to say that this is the worst South African team I've seen this century?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I think I've never, because this is the worst South African team I've seen in my lifetime, to be fair. And barring, I don't know, is Rabada even
Yes,
going to be
Rabada.
playing?
They have an
Because
excellent pace attack, right? Rabada and Gidi, Nokia, they're all in the squad. But here's the thing: you want those guys to
yeah,
win you test matches in South Africa, Australia, insane, basically, right? You come to the
yeah,
subcontinent and
and the
three
countries,
rapid 150 plus fast bowlers. Well, Ngidi's not quite that quick. Three of them in one team, they're going to blow
yeah,
out after like, 5 over spells, the heats, the humidity. They'll be blown out. They can't bowl again that session.
yeah.
So you're really reliant on your spinners.
But it's a 2 hour. It's a two
Yeah,
series
two
test,
test
right?
series.
Um, So a two test series. So it's not like they have like a huge workload over a prolonged 4 match or 5 match test series, right? But I agree with you. Like they will find it hard to. We don't know what pitches are going
Yeah,
to be in Pakistan, right? That's why it's really hard
Yeah.
for us to kind of
if it
predict anything,
spins,
right?
I don't see any chance for South
No.
Africa. Like, because forget the bowling, their main problem
No.
has been batting against spin, especially in subcontinent conditions. They've just been so terrible at it for the last 6 years now,
Right.
going back to 2015 when they got whitewashed in India.
Mm. I agree with you. Um, I don't see. I honestly think Pakistan will dominate them, and I'm very happy for Pakistanis that they have cricket back home. Like I just can't imagine how it would feel like for Indians not to have that for so many years, or for English people to not be able to play cricket at home. Imagine if, for example, England hadn't played Test cricket for 15 years. Jimmy Anderson would be complete. I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to say that angry letters is gonna come after me. But
Well,
yeah,
talking about
it is a huge moment for
Anderson,
them for things to
talking
go
about
right.
Anderson, and I'm only saying this
Yeah.
very like sort of tangentially. Pakistan, I'm looking at their squad on Cricket Pro.
Mm.
They have picked a 36-year-old fast medium bowler to play his first ever international. Which that seems to be a pretty crazy selection, right? I mean, we talk about Anderson. Is he too old to be
Yeah.
playing subcontinent tests? But he's a guy with over 600 test wickets, right? And here are Pakistan picking a 36-year-old to make his
Yeah.
debut. Um, seems pretty crazy.
And
Yeah.
that also considering that usually the ages on subcontinent are not exactly the same, and people are usually older than they show on
I don't
paper.
know.
So maybe that guy
I
is
don't
39 years old or something.
Well,
know.
his
That's
name
such a
is
bold
Tabish
claim
Khan.
to make.
Let's see if he gets his opportunity and see what he makes
Yeah.
of it. The other bowlers they've picked, Haris Ralph, who I don't know if you guys watch BBL, but he's been excellent in the BBL the last 2 seasons. Very fast, so he gets up to 150 k's. I don't know what he does in like red ball cricket though,
Yeah.
so who knows? Maybe he's a T20 specialist. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. Um,
Yeah.
they've called back Hassan Ali, who hasn't played for them for a while. He got off to such like a hot start for Pakistan in all formats, especially in ODIs. But then he seems to sort of
Mm.
disappear. He's back now. The other bowler they've got is, of course,
Yeah.
Shaheen Shah Afridi, who, for my money, is the best young cricketer in the world. I don't know if you guys have seen a lot of him, but he's such a good young cricketer. Left arm fast.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
He's a great player. Yeah. I would say the best young bowler. I wouldn't say the young
Well,
best
are there any
player.
other
It's too
20-year-old batsmen
comparing
going
them.
around?
Yeah, Shubman Gill, dude. Have you not seen it?
Isn't
Have
he
you not
like
seen it?
22,
How can you
23?
believe? How can you?
I'm just going to Google him.
No, he's 20. He's
Oh,
just
okay,
turned
fair enough, fair
21.
He's
enough.
He's
21.
just like
He's
20.
younger than I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've
But
also got,
something that that would be interesting to see is Babar Azam's captaincy. He's starting
yep,
his new stint as captain.
yep, that's right. And
Yeah.
how will he
Yeah,
react
Yeah.
to it in terms of batting? Because
yeah,
captaining shouldn't be that
Oh,
difficult. Considering it's a home series.
yeah. An interesting thing I saw on
yeah,
Barber Azam. Yeah. Something I saw on Barber Azam is that if he scores 400 runs in this series, he will be averaging 50
yeah.
in all formats of the game. So he will join Kohli. That's insane, dude. That is an absolutely incredible stat. So yeah, he's a fabulous player, and I'm really looking forward to this series. I don't know if it's going to be broadcasted in England,
Hopefully, it'll be on YouTube,
but I'll be
like
keeping
on the PCB YouTube channel.
right, right,
Otherwise, we'll have
right.
to
Yeah,
do some illicit.
Let's not discuss about that.
yeah,
um,
yeah.
and also, Pakistan have picked Yasir Shah as I think their only spinner. So that's interesting.
That's
They've only picked,
interesting.
as far as I can tell, one spinner. So maybe they're not expecting the
Mm,
pitches to turn too much. I don't know. If that's the case, that'll bring South Africa right into contention. Because, like I said, they've got an
Yeah,
excellent pace attack.
yeah, it will. Well, I mean, I don't know. Has Nokia proven himself at
Yes, he
Test
was
cricket?
very impressive against Sri
Because I don't
Lanka.
think Ngidi
Very
is.
impressive against Sri Lanka. The pace was up,
Right.
good line and length. Um, he's got two fifers in 8 tests. One of those was recently against Sri Lanka. He took 6 for 56 at Joburg. Just looking what his other
Yeah.
fifer was against. It was against England, so that
Mm,
would have been last year as well. So he's played against a variety of teams now: England, India, Sri
yeah.
Lanka, um, and
Yeah.
done okay.
But anyway, I think for me, Rabada. You give me any bowler in the world, I'd pick Rabada. I think he's my favorite bowler in the world. He is unbelievable. But yeah. South Africa's pace attack does look pretty good. I think Ngidi's a bit overrated personally, but Rabada on his own is still a threatening force. And what spinners are they
They've
playing for the
got
South Africa
yeah,
side? Are
they've
they
got Maharaj
Maharaj
and
and
Shamsi. So I'm not sure if they'll pick one or two. I would go with both of
yeah,
them, and then they've got their new young all-rounder
right,
Wayan Mulder, who's pretty impressive with bat and ball. Like
right,
he did look pretty poor against spin when I saw him in the series that we Sri Lanka beat South Africa in. That was when Wayan Mulder got his debut. He's only 22, but um,
right,
if I was the South African management, I would
yeah,
pick two of their three very good fast bowlers, Wayan Mulder as the all-rounder, and two spinners. And then you've got an attack that's going to be able to at least manage like whatever situation they're in. They should be able to do a decent enough job. But just to sort of wrap up, again, the big question mark is going to be with their batting, which I'm just not convinced is going to be good enough in subcontinent conditions.
I agree with you, but let's wrap it up now. That was a really long episode, but I really enjoyed that discussion, and I'm pretty sure Arg and Foothill did as well. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Innings Break. Yeah, this will be on YouTube, Spotify, all the usual places, and please do check it out. And also, please join our Discord. We're starting to have a lot of discussions openly in there, and it's a wonderful place where we can all just kind of get together and discuss our opinions on stuff. But thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful day. Next week, we'll be back with another episode with our good friend Angry Letters, where we will review the Sri Lanka England series, and we will preview the India England series. So I'm looking forward to that. Guys, have an amazing week. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, and have a good one.
Cheers. Bye
Cheers.
bye.
Bye.